We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. Words of Marianne Moore. Good morning. Welcome to Cross Street Chapel. I'm grateful for your presence here, for those who've joined us here in person, as well as those who are following us online. I hope that whatever you're looking for in this space might be joy and celebration, might be a place to shed some tears and have some sorrowful reflection. Maybe you've come looking for a few words of wisdom, and I hope you'll hear them. Perhaps you've come looking to connect with one another, or maybe simply you want a chance to rest with the divine. Whatever it is that's brought you into this space, I hope you find it, and I know that you'll find a warm community. I'm glad to be back. I'm always glad to, when I have a bit of holiday time and I go away, and then like I always say every time, I'm glad to be back, and it's fantastic to share and celebrate and worship with us all today. So we lit our chalice with those words of Marianne Moore. We turn now to deepen ourselves into this time of worship with the words of J.S. Wellhaven. You well of light from which my soul drank deeply in the seasons of roses, you shine forth from my inner day when darkness keeps me imprisoned. So as I say, there's so many emotions and encounters that we have when we come into our time of time together, whether it's celebration or repose. However you are, you're welcomed here. And hopefully you've brought some singing voices too. Let us sing our first hymn in the Purple Book, number 30. Brian Wren's Each Seeking Faith is Seeking Light, hymn number 30. Thank you. I heard some discussion before the service about how familiar these hymns were today, comparable to ones that I have perhaps chosen that are a bit more well known. We have done them before, albeit some perhaps a few years ago, but I'm sure you will all catch very quickly. And that was really spectacular, those words of Brian Wren. We are seeking faith. Let us turn, though, now to a time of prayer with these words of the Reverend Dana Worsnop. It's entitled, I Want to Be with People. It will be followed by our covenant, which is printed in your order of worship and will appear online. But first, these words. Often people say that they love coming to a place with so many like-minded people. I know just what they're getting at, and I know that they aren't getting it quite right. I don't want to be with a bunch of people who think just like me. I want to be in a beloved community where I don't have to think like everyone else, to be loved, to be eligible for salvation. I want to be with people who value compassion, justice, love, and truth, though they have different thoughts and opinions about all sorts of things. I want to be with independent-minded people of good heart. I want to be with people who have many names and no name at all for God. I want to be with people who see me in my goodness and dignity, who also see my failings and my foibles, and who still love me. I want to be with people who feel their interconnection with all existence and let it guide their footfalls upon the earth. I want to be with people who see life as a paradox and don't always rush to resolve it. I want to be with people who are willing to walk the tightrope that is life and who will hold my hand as I walk mine. I want to be with people who let church call them into a different way of being in the world. I want to be with people who support, encourage, and even challenge each other to higher and more ethical living. I want to be with people who inspire one another to follow the call of the Spirit. I want to be with people who covenant to be honest, engaged, and kind, who strive to keep their promises and hold me to the promises I make. I want to be with people who give of themselves, who share their hearts and minds and gifts. I want to be with people who know that human community is often warm and generous, sometimes challenging, and almost always a grand adventure. In short, I want to be with people like you. Amen. And please read with me our covenant, which you'll find printed in your order of worship. We gather here in sacred fellowship to witness the fullness of our lives and all life, to hold and be held, tell stories and listen, to be renewed and renewed the world. We speak with care and patience. We act with gentleness and compassion. We forgive each other and ourselves. In faith that we build beloved community, we renew our covenant today. Amen. Today's story is called Augustus and His Smile, and it's a children's story. It has beautiful pictures, but I don't actually have a copy of that today, so you will have to use your imagination. If you need to close your eyes, then please do so, and let Catherine Rayner's evocative words sort of convey some image therein upon yourselves. As I say, a story about Augustus the tiger. Augustus the tiger was sad. He had lost his smile. So he did a huge tigery stretch and set off to find it. First, he crept under a cluster of bushes. He found a small shiny beetle, but he couldn't see his smile. Then he climbed to the top of the tallest trees. He found birds that chirped and called, but he couldn't find his smile. Further, and further Augustus searched. He scaled the crests of the highest mountains where the snow clouds swirled, making frost patterns in the freezing air. He swam to the bottom deepest oceans and splished and splashed with shoals of tiny, shiny fish. He pranced and paraded through the largest desert, making shadow shapes in the sun. Augustus padded and paraded further and further through the shifting sand until pitter, patter, trip, drop, flop. Rain started to fall. Augustus danced and raced as raindrops bounced and flew. He splashed through puddles, bigger and deeper. He raced towards a huge silver blue puddle, and he saw there, under his nose, his smile. And Augustus realized that his smile would be there whenever he was happy. He only had to swim with the fish, or dance in the puddles, or climb the mountains and look at the world, for happiness was everywhere around him. Augustus was so pleased that he hopped and he skipped and he jumped away, smiling. Augustus and his smile. I love this story. I'm aware as well that for us, smiles can be hard to find at times. So if you do not or cannot find your smile, just know that you are here and held and loved and cared for. If you wish to share of your lives at this point, your joys as well as your sorrows, your trials and your triumphs, please feel free to do so. You can light a candle. If you have a few words to say, come to the microphone so those who are listening online, those who are using the loop system will be able to hear you. If you are online and you want to share something, please type into the chat box and we will read it out. You're, of course, invited to light a candle in silence if you wish. And as always, if you prefer to just hold your life in your heart and remain seating, know that your presence here is enough. Nothing more is asked of you at this time, just simply that you are. So I'm going to light a candle of hope. We had, I don't say we or I, it's that sort of slightly gray area. On Thursday, it was very honored to welcome my MP, Christian Wakeford, who joined us for a conversation about trans rights and trans support and care. I'm not entirely sure whether, it was sort of done on my own, but I know under the rubric of the chapel to a certain extent. But I'm absolutely grateful for everyone who participated and took part. I'm grateful for Christian for listening, and as I said, it's a candle of hope, in hope that he will take that message of trans inclusion back to Parliament, back to the EHRC guidance, especially as we're looking for that to be revised this month. Thank you.
I'm going to light a little candle, shockingly large this time, for, yes, an interesting meeting on Thursday, which seemed to be well received, for a train journey I have this afternoon over to Wakefield for Westgate's first Pride, led by our organist, Pride service led by our organist, Anthony. And on a slightly less happy note, for the minister, I think he's with the minister at Nuneaton, Robin Hanford, who had a unsavoury altercation with a member of the public during Nuneaton's events yesterday.
I was going to be selfish and light another candle, which is that this is another candle of hope. It's hope that our lift will be repaired soon. It was tricky getting a 7-year-old in their pushchair down several flights of stairs this morning. So hopefully the return journey won't be so bad. And for all those joys and sorrows here spoken, and those that remain silently in our hearts. Let us join together and return to hymn number 213 in the Purple Book, Where Science Serves and Art Inspires. Hymn number 213 by Jane Marshall. Our reading today is Baking Day, a poem by Rosemary Joseph. Thursday was baking day in our house. The spicy smell of new-baked bread would meet my nostrils when I came home from school, and there would be fresh buns for tea. But better still were the holidays. Then I could stay and watch the baking of the bread. My mother would build up the fire and pull out the damper until the flames were flaring under the oven. While it was heating, she would get out her earthenware bowl and baking board. Into the crater of flour in the bowl, she would pour sugar and yeast in hot water. To make sure the yeast was fresh, I often had been sent to fetch it from the grocer that morning, and it smelt of the earth after rain as it dissolved in the sweet water. Then her small, stubby hands would knead and pummel the dough until they became two clowns in baggy pantaloons. And the right one, whose 3 fingers and blue stump told of the accident which followed my birth, became whole. As the hands worked, a creamy elastic ball took shape and, covered by a white cloth, was set on a wooden chair by the fire, slowly to rise. To me, the most mysterious rite of all. From time to time, I would peep at the living dough to make sure it was not creeping out of the bowl. Sometimes I imagined it possessed, filling the whole room, and we, helpless, unable to control its power to grow. But as it heaved above the rim of the bowl, Mother was there, taking it and molding it into plaited loaves and buns, and giving me a bit too, to make into a bread man with currant eyes, and I too was a baker. My man was baked with the loaves, and I would eat him for tea. On Friday night, when the plaited loaves were placed under a white napkin on the dining table beside 2 lighted candles, they became holy. No bread will ever be so full of the sun as the pieces we were given to eat after prayers and the cutting of this bread. My mother, who thought her life had been narrow, did not want her daughters to be bakers of bread. I think that she was wise. Yet, sometimes when my cultivated brain chafes at kitchen tasks, I remember her, patiently kneading dough and rolling pastry, her untutored intelligence all bent towards nourishing her children. Baking Day by Rosemary Joseph. Let us return now to prayer with these words of Margaret Kite. The journeys of our lives are never fully charted. There come to each of us deserts to cross, barren stretches, where the green edge on the horizon may be our destination, or an oasis on our way, or a mirage that beckons only to leave us lost. When fear grips the heart, or despair bows the head, may we bend as heart and head lead us down to touch the ground beneath our feet. May we scoop some sand into our hands and receive what the sand would teach us. It holds the warmth of the sun when the sun has left our sight, as it holds the cool of the night when the stars have faded. Hidden among its grains are tiny seeds, at rest and waiting, dormant, yet undefeated. Desert flowers, they endure, moistened by our tears and by the rains which come to end even the longest drought. They send down roots and they bloom. May we believe in those seeds and in the seeds within us. May we remember in our dry seasons too that we, our desert flowers. Amen. And so let us enter into a period of silence for reflection, meditation, contemplation, and personal prayer. you, Aaron. Let us come now to our next hymn in the Purple Book, number 4, at Reverend Andrew Hill's All That Is Abundant Living, hymn number 4. If you hadn't known, I'll give an update. So a fortnight ago, 2 weeks ago, when I gave the service, I began with a story about the fact that my laptop charger exploded Saturday night, and this was quite difficult because I was just beginning the sermon, and I knew that there wouldn't be enough juice in the laptop, which was fine. It was just the charger. There wouldn't be enough juice in the laptop to get me through writing the sermon and then through the online broadcast. So I had to make the judicious decision of printing everything that I had and then setting it to sleep, and then having to write some notes and then preach from those notes rather than having a fully scripted service. It's not something that is completely unfamiliar with me. Very early in my ministry, I was experimenting with all sorts, trying different formats, using various forms of media in the services. And one of those elements was, it was a constant tension for me. Should I be preaching from a full script, or should I just be using a few notes, or should it be completely extemporaneous, which is quite a scary thing. That notion, I suppose, of opening the sermon and just seeing like a single word, love. Can you speak about love, for 15 minutes? And so I had some experience about it, and it wasn't like the most dire of circumstances. But it brought to mind, of course, some of those experiments that I had engaged with back in those early days. For instance, before I had my presentation folder, my predecessor, she would deliver the chalice lighting here. She'd light the chalice and then come back and say the secondary words, those call to worship. I really liked the concept of being at the chalice to be able to do that. That's why I love sort of the start of the service. You're in this space and you're occupying it. But I didn't have a presentation folder, and I didn't want to be standing here just with a sheet of paper. So there was a period where I actually memorized all the words that I would have to say here, all those chalice lighting words. The repetitive words are fine, I can manage that. But if you have 2 services a week and you're choosing different chalice lighting, different benediction, and so forth, it can be quite cumbersome. And I was devoting a lot of time to memorizing and making sure, that was very anxious and stressful. Okay, I really want to make sure I get it right, because there might be someone in the congregation that knows the words better than I do, and they'll shout out the correction if need be. So I was experimenting with memorizing that, and it was about a month or so into doing this as an exercise and as trying it out, that a congregant after the service came up to me. I'd been doing this for a month, and he said, "Wow, you've been saying you did that memorized. Right? Is that new?" No awareness that it had been going on for a month. So when I talk about sort of experimenting or trying different things, it's partly to warn. I was going to say to preempt you. Isn't it amazing, by the way, that we sometimes we're so caught in our ways, caught in the very solidity of our rituals or our expectations, that we don't even notice the change when it's happening. We're not even aware that something different is about and sort of just sort of on the crest of things, even though we're fully witnessing it in front of our very own eyes. So that was something, an experiment that I tried early on. Not everything I've done. I have hemmed and hawed about changing the layout of the chapel. I can pick up some immediate tension. I'm not planning to. But I was going to say, just hear me out, because every now and then I sort of wonder to my mind, well, what would it be like if people came in and the seats were all here on this side, and then maybe I was over here by where the organ is, and maybe Aaron is over there in that space, because people can come in and you can sit and we can hold our worship together, and then afterwards everyone can go this way, where the pulpit is, where the lectern is, to the tea and coffee. It creates this sort of directional movement. It also resolves one of the big questions that I know a lot of people have, which is, what do you have to do if you need to use the toilet? Because for those who don't know, our toilet is beyond these doors. And just in case you don't know, the answer is, unless it's an emergency, use those doors, please. So you don't have to necessarily walk behind me to access the toilets. As I said, I'm not planning to do this anytime soon. But I thought about it. I like that notion of sort of exploring the space and the natural elements within the space. But I haven't done that because whenever I think about it, and whenever I think about what people tell me about the space and what they like about the physical solidity and congregational space in this worship hall, is the circular nature of our chairs. And that they feel the greatest and most often thing I'm told is that people feel like they are being held by one another. They are being hugged by the congregation. It is this great circle of caring and love. It is a bowl in which we place ourselves, our identities, our passions, our sorrows, and our joys all together so that we can share in this great sort of great mix of everything that we are. We had some words earlier about bowls. Rosemary Joseph, in her poem Baking Day, talked about her mother getting out this great earthenware bowl as she prepared to make the bread for Thursday and Friday. The poem, of course, delves quite deeply into the relationship that she has with her mother. It's clear that there's been some sense of moving on in her life. Her mother wanted sort of higher ambitions, what she perceived to be sort of greater goals for her daughter. And it sounds like she sort of carried on in that regard, but she did still consider her mother wise, I suppose comparable to her own, as she said, sort of intelligence. There's also, of course, this great sort of relation of religion evocative in the poem, because the bread that's specifically being baked is challah for the Shabbat service, Friday evening. And she describes the planting of the loaves and the bread, and slicing the bread between the candles under a white sheet. I love the poem as well because, as I say, she makes this distinction between her mother's wisdom and her intelligence. And for me, the greatest distinction, or the greatest sort of illustration between wisdom and knowledge is bread, and specifically how bread is made. Just out of curiosity, who here has made bread in a bread machine? Who here has made bread by hand? So if you make bread in a bread machine, you have to measure everything out absolutely precise. It has to be really, absolutely perfect. Everything has to be, it can't be sort of like near the end of its, use by date. It has to be, all well. The water has to be at an appropriate temperature. You have to put it in a very specific order. You have to program the machine to the bread that you want it to make. And you have to, I suppose, keep your fingers crossed that everything sort of works out accordingly. It's all very precise, very exacting. And for me, that is knowledge. That is the facts. That is the sort of material reality, that's illustrated through facts and measures and all sorts. Making bread by hand, however, is like wisdom. If you're kneading the dough and it's a bit wet, then you add a bit more flour. You prepare the yeast so that it's activating, and you give it a little bit of time, and you can tell that it's ready. As Rosemary writes about that sort of beautiful earthy smell that comes out from the yeast. You set it aside and you let it grow, and you know that it's grown enough, not because of the amount of time that's passed, but because it's doubled in size. And finally, you put it in the oven, and yes, you do want to be pretty precise with how long it's in the oven, but you bring it out, and you can knock on the bottom of the bread, and if it has that hollow sound, then you know that the bread is finished. Otherwise, you have to put it back in for some more time. So it engages all the senses, making bread by hand. You're smelling it, you're feeling it, you're looking at it and hearing it. And then finally, of course, you're tasting it. You're actually embodying it. You're embodying that knowledge. It's not just within the brain, but it's within your fingers. It's within your ears and your nose. Wisdom versus knowledge. It's that embodiment of the world. And just like Rosemary has this relationship with her mother and the relationship with her faith and this relationship with all of the earth, we too have that. We have that connection to the outside world beyond our own physical limitations or bodies. We are co-creators here. We're becoming kindred with what the world speaks to us, what resonates within us. We see this as well in the story by Catherine Rayner about Augustus and his smile. This poor tiger is looking everywhere in the world for it. He finally discovers that it is within himself, of course. He needs only look at a mirror. So you'd think that would sort of go against the message that we're talking about, this sort of like physicality and sensuality and connection to the world. But it's within the rain. It's during this sort of great rainstorm that he utterly delights in, and he celebrates, and he dances around, and he hops, and he skips. And then that allows him to reflect on all the other joyous encounters he had, going up in the trees and going down in the oceans. Augustus, revels in that, and that brings back the smile. Although, as I said before the chalice lighting, it's extremely important that we also recognize that we aren't always happy, and maybe we don't always need to be happy. Maybe there are times where we need to give honor to the sadness and the madness and all the other sort of complex emotions that we face. Because, as I said before, we are held by this congregation. We are held by our communities, just as a bowl holds that mixed and kneaded together dough as it rises into bread. Our final hymn is the African-American song, This Little Light of Mine, which is a bit hard to sort of figure out its history. It's only it creates this effect. We're not going to sing it right away. We have a few other things. I'm just prefacing it a bit. It has this slightly shrouded history. It's we know it. We've seen it sort of very clearly in existence in the early 20th century. Some people will think that it falls into the realm of being a spiritual, but there isn't actually much record or any record prior to that. There's people wonder whether it's referencing the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5. You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hid. People do not light a lamp and put it under the bushel basket. Rather, they put it on the lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house. This little light of mine, that sort of inner spark, inner divinity for those who have that theology. However you envision it, it's a message about sharing that with the world. I'm finding myself very often talking about Unitarians sometimes not being good at sharing that light, that we do keep it often under a bushel. But when I was reflecting on that, I suddenly became interested in the fact that we talk a lot about this light, and we don't talk about that basket. That we talk about the inner guiding light that needs to shine forth, but we don't point out that the basket isn't supposed to be covering the light. The basket has its own purpose. It's bringing everything together. It's that celebration of the community. So if I have sort of any message from this, it's not, don't just give honor to that light, and that is important as well. Recognizing our inner divinity, recognizing our inner experiences, and recognizing how they have value to us and the community and the world, and sharing it beyond ourselves if possible. But don't just look to the light for inspiration. Look to the bowl. Look to the basket that is holding everything together. That brings together the difference, as Dana Worsnop writes, that brings together, the myriad experiences that Augustus had, that brings together all the memories that Rosemary Joseph had, that brings together all those possibilities of the desert that Margaret Cape writes about. Look for those bowls in our life, that we can be bringing ourselves together. Amen. A few announcements before we sing our final hymn. On the back of the order of worship, you'll see a few upcoming events. We have a communion service after our regular service today. For those who are unfamiliar, Unitarian communion is this sort of opportunity to recognize our Christian heritage. It can be, it's not required of anyone, and it's not barred from anyone. So if you wish to participate, please do so. But you're, of course, invited as well to simply observe if you want, or if you want to go for the tea and coffee earlier, that's fine as well. I'll give more detailed instructions when we get to the actual communion service. On the 14th, the Faith Network for Manchester continues its series of events at John Ryland's library called Faith in the Arts. And this week, is it Thursday, I think, it's doing a special session on Methodist and nonconformist papers, which will, I suspect, include some Unitarian documents as we fall under that umbrella. So that's 2 o'clock at John Ryland's library. It's run by the Faith Network for Manchester. Then at the end of the month, we have our Pride weekend. We march in Manchester Pride. The chapel's open from 10, so join us for that. If you're going with us to the march, we leave about 11, and then it sets off about midday. And then there's a shared meal afterwards. And then on Sunday, the 24th, we have our Pride service, and our guest speaker this year is our own Coyne Daly, who's going to be speaking on defending trans rights, why this is important for free religion. And you'll see some events coming up in September as well. I'm afraid I don't have the times to hand, but on Saturday the 27th, I'm very honored to be leading the worship for the Rivington Triennial Pilgrimage. And there's a sign-up sheet for that. So that's in September, though. So you have a little bit of time. Are there any announcements or notices from the congregation? Yes, Sonia?
Faith in the Arts at John Ryland on the 14th. I think they changed it. It's now an evening one.
Oh, it's now evening.
People at work. And it's from 5 to 7.
Thank you, 5 to 7. So I'll make a note, and I'll send a message out for that as well. Thursday, the 14th, 5 to 7. Let us then sing our final hymn, This Little Light of Mine, which you'll find printed in your order of worship and online.
Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it go. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. In my neighbor's heart, I'm gonna let it shine. In my neighbor's heart, I'm gonna let it shine. In my neighbor's heart, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. In my city soul, I'm gonna let it shine. In my city soul, I'm gonna let it shine. In my city soul, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. All around the world, I'm gonna let it shine. All around the world, I'm gonna let it shine. All around the world, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Thank you, Aaron, for that fantastic music. Thank you all for singing. Thank you, Carl, for the IT. Thank you, Nick, for the tea and coffee that we're about to enjoy. Thank you, Sonia, for greeting, for these beautiful flowers, and everyone for creating and sharing worship today. We close with these words of the Reverend Jane Blackall. May the light of this chalice be a reminder of the shared values and principles around which we gather, upholding the inherent worth and dignity of every person, cherishing all those diverse creatures and habitats with whom we share this earth, our home, seeking human liberation and flourishing, serving the common good of all. May this little light and all it represents make a home in our hearts, where it will ever guide us back to our highest aspirations and help us to be responsive, creative, just, and loving in this complex and ever-changing world. Amen. Circle of friends is a blessed thing. Sweet is the breaking of bread with friends. For the honor of their presence at our table, we are deeply grateful. Welcome to our communion. This is an opportunity to recognize and reaffirm our heritage, to recommit to values and perspectives that are important to us in the present day, that each day going forward may be lived with compassion